Science actually is limited, and the great scientists have seen it. For example, Erwin Schrödinger, physics Nobel laureate, pioneer of quantum mechanics, which is a very big field represented at Texas A&M. He said this: "I'm very astonished that the scientific picture of the real world around me is very deficient. It gives us a lot of factual information, but it is ghastly silent about all and sundry that really matters to us. It cannot tell us a word about red and blue, bitter and sweet, physical pain and physical delight. It knows nothing of beautiful and ugly, good or bad, God and eternity." Science sometimes pretends to answer questions in these domains, but the answers are very often so silly that we're not inclined to take them seriously. But one person that figures very strongly in my thinking is another Nobel Prize winner, Sir Peter Medawar. And he said that the limits of science are demonstrated by the existence of questions that science cannot now and will never be able to answer. The so-called ultimate questions of the philosopher Karl Popper that even children ask. How did everything begin? What are we all here for? What's the point of living? And very interestingly, Peter Medawar added that it's not to science, but rather to imaginative literature and religion that we must turn for answers to such questions. And Francis Collins, the current director of NIH, the Templeton Prize winner last year, agrees. Science is powerless to answer questions such as, why did the universe come into being? What is the meaning of human existence? And what happens after we die? And to give you a concrete example, Albert Einstein and Richard Feynman, again, both physics Nobel Prize winners, point out what should be obvious, that ethical values lie outside the realm of science. Now, to back all this up, I think the important thing to say, Micah, is that a scientific explanation of something is not necessarily the only rational explanation that is possible. Indeed, there can be multiple explanations. Suppose you ask, why is this water boiling? I might say that heat energy from the gas flame is being conducted through the copper base of the kettle. It's agitating the molecules of the water, and so the water is boiling. That's a scientific explanation. Or I might say the water is boiling because I just love a cup of tea. Now, both of these explanations are rational. They each make perfect sense, but they're very different. The first is scientific, and the second is personal, involving my intentions, my will, and my desire. And what's obvious is that science cannot yield the second explanation, but the two explanations don't conflict or even compete. They complement each other. And what is more, and this is most important, I think, that both explanations are necessary for a full explanation. And one might even argue that the explanation in terms of personal agency is arguably the more important, even though science cannot give it to you, because people have been enjoying drinking tea for millennia before they knew anything about heat equations. And Aristotle pointed all this out centuries ago when he distinguished between a material cause, the kettle, the water, the gas, and so on, and the final cause, my desire for a stimulating beverage. So science can't answer all the questions. Scientism is false, and we need to open our minds to the fact that there are different levels of experience. Putting it this way to conclude, science and God do not compete as explanations for the universe any more than Henry Ford and automobile engineering compete as explanations for the motor car.